moral equivalency between Hamas, a terrorist organization funded by Iran, and Israel. There are all kinds of differences. Number one, when Israel strikes, for example, they call the building and say, please get out of the building because we're about to attack it in order to minimize civilian casualties. Hamas is lobbing rockets into Israel to kill civilians. There is no moral equivalency here, and those who are calling for a ceasefire are basically suggesting that there is moral equivalency. I think we need to stand by our Israeli friends. Imagine what our reaction would be if somebody was lobbing these missiles into Washington. I think we'd be hitting back, but we'd be hitting back with precision. Secondly, we had a good discussion at lunch about the January 6th commission. I think I'm safe in characterizing our conference as willing to listen to the arguments about whether such a commission is needed. One thing I think we need to bear in mind is there are hundreds of arrests that have already occurred. The Attorney General is pursuing many more. There's a serious criminal investigation going on right now. Query, would the January 6th Commission in any way interfere with the criminal investigations and the law enforcement activities? Number two, we need to read the fine print. Even though the Commission appears to be balanced, my staff tells me that, in fact, the majority, the chair, who will be determined by Pelosi and Schumer, control all the staff hiring. So I'm not saying that we have decided this should not go forward, but if it's going to go forward, it needs to be clearly balanced and not tilted one way or the other, so we have an objective evaluation. So I think it's safe for you to report that we are undecided about the way forward at this point. We want to read the fine print, and if the majority leader puts it on the floor, we'll react accordingly.
Well, it's nice to see some smiling faces again. I think proof and evidence that vaccines work, and I hope that the American people will see this and understand that vaccines are safe and effective, and the best thing that we can do to get this pandemic behind us is to get everybody vaccinated. In South Dakota, vaccine rates are high, the unemployment rate is low, and kids are back in school, and we're glad that the rest of the country is starting to catch up. But what I see happening with the current administration and many of their policies is they're moving further and further to the left and making it harder and harder for the country to get back on its feet economically. And I think there are several pieces of evidence about that. One is the inflation rates, the highest that it's been in 12 years, which means that everything from the food you put on the table to the energy you use in your home to purchasing a used car, all those things, everything is going up. It's more expensive for people in this country. Secondly, you had in the month of March 8.1 million job openings, and yet the April employment report recorded that only 266,000 people got jobs, meaning that there is a huge gap, a huge disconnect between the number of jobs available out there and the people who are actually wanting to go back to work. And one of the reasons for that is the Biden administration has adopted to put policies in place and keep policies in place that make it harder and harder for businesses to compete with the federal government. The unemployment rate increase, which has been locked in now until September, is making it harder and harder for employers across this country to hire. And that's going to continue you're going to continue to see that unemployment rate tick up until that changes. And so I hope that the administration will realize that there are radical policies, very leftist policies on the economy, whether it's the massive amount of spending, the proposed tax increases which would kill jobs in the economy, are not the right policies. That if we would stick to and adhere to the pro-growth policies that were in place prior to their arrival at the White House, that we were seeing our economy grow and expand at the fastest rate in generations. And those are the types of policies we think need to be in place, and hopefully the administration will come to that conclusion.
Well, inflation is actually roaring back. The price hikes are such that it's the largest since 2008. And it's hitting people in their wallets when they buy gas, when they buy groceries, you name it. Gas prices are now over $3 a gallon. The last time we've had that in the United States was 7 years ago. And when you take a look at the Biden administration and their deliberate policies of attacking American energy, there's no surprise that energy prices are up. This is predictable, and it would have been preventable. Right now, we're using more oil imported from Vladimir Putin and Russia than we're using oil from Alaska. That's a result of the policies of this administration. So whether you need to either heat your home or cool your home, you're going to pay more. We had one pipeline that shut down last week. It caused panic, it caused long lines, and we're going to see more of this with this administration's policies. So people are paying more, but it's not just going to be about energy costs. We're also seeing it for products. Used cars, used trucks up 10% in cost last month alone. Higher grocery prices. And it's not just Republicans who are predicting it. President Obama's Secretary of Treasury, had said that this was going to happen if you continue with this massive amount of spending of this administration. They saw this with the last so-called stimulus bill, a coronavirus relief, which wasn't about coronavirus relief. It was going to overheat the economy. That is exactly what happened. And President Obama's Secretary of Treasury said the thing that was a surprise to him was that the inflation has gone up so quickly, and faster than he would have ever expected. We're going to see more of this if President Biden continues with these policies of taxing and spending. And guess what the House wants to do? More liberals came out and said, no, $6 trillion isn't enough. Last night they came out with a counteroffer to their own offer, and they've gone up to $7.1 trillion. This is administration and Democrats who are absolutely have a misguided obsession with taxing and spending, and this is going to be to the detriment of the American people.
Well, for the first time in a long time at home, I think all of us are hearing about inflation. The other thing we're hearing about that we've been hearing about now for weeks and months is people just don't want to go to work. That there are more jobs than there are people that want to go to work, and a lot of that is caused by the federal government. If you add the $300 a week to the average state unemployment, your weekly unemployment, including that $300, is $618 a week. If you can make more than $15 an hour by staying home, a lot of people can't make that right now going to work. It doesn't mean that $15 an hour is the problem. It means paying people too much not to work is a problem. I talked to a person last week who runs a theme park, Branson, Missouri, been there for years, one of the great theme parks in the country, Silver Dollar City. He said we could hire 150 people in the morning if we could find them in the morning. I talked to a guy who runs a chain of hotels. He said our problem is not the customers anymore, it's being able to handle the customers. He said we could rent more rooms, we could fill more rooms if we could clean more rooms, and we're having to turn people away because we don't have the staff it takes to run the hotel the way we'd need to run it. 21 states have either already stopped or announced they're going to stop accepting the $300 additional federal money. Washington, D.C. is creating a problem here that states are having to solve one by one on their own. It's time we realize the problem we're creating both with inflation and a shortage of workers in the country, and we need to have that discussion.
Yesterday was tax day, and it should serve as a good reminder for all of us who is really paying for all of this extreme spending that the Democrats are doing, and that's the American people. It's hard-working American people. And what we see coming out of the Biden administration is some plans to start raising taxes on these very same hardworking Iowans and Americans. One of the provisions in Joe Biden's tax policy plan is to eliminate a provision that allows farmers and small businesses to pass on their assets without incurring huge tax liabilities. That is really important for the folks back home. We see another provision that would end the cap on the state and local tax provisions for our liberal coastal elites. And I've got to get this right. They're deductions. It would end repealing the cap on state and local tax deductions. Again, the SALT. And I have to get this right. I'm going to quote this, okay? Everybody pay close attention because the quote is from AOC, folks. AOC says this is a, quote, gift to billionaires, end quote, and a, quote, giveaway to the rich, end quote. And you get it here first, folks. This is probably the only time that I will ever agree with AOC. Okay, these tax provisions that are being promoted by the Biden administration, they really are in certain areas a giveaway to billionaires. Okay, if we have the extreme left saying these are giveaways, and obviously hearing from my hardworking Iowans back home that have worked their entire lives to put together their farms, their small businesses, they are pushing against these tax policies. I haven't heard of many folks that believe this is the right thing to do. So again, we've got to end the taxing and the spending. This is not good for our economy, not good for our recovery. And I hope the Biden administration is not only listening to AOC, but also just plain old hardworking Americans.
The phrase that best describes the Biden Democrat agenda is systemic socialism. You know, other than Bernie Sanders and AOC, they don't like to talk about socialism because they know the American public is completely against socialism. But let's look at what they're doing. They're talking about redistribution of wealth, that's socialism, check. High taxes, that's socialism. Bigger government, that's what they want, socialism. They want to take away our rights, the First Amendment rights and Second Amendment rights, that's socialism. And what else happens with socialism? Prices go up. If you just look over the last 14 months, lumber prices are up almost double. Meat prices, 16%. Gas prices, 49%. Bread and grain prices, 68%. Now, who does it hurt? It hurts the poor. It hurts somebody on fixed income. Their wages don't go up like that. And so the Democrats say they care about those people, but it's the opposite. Their systemic socialism hurts the poor and hurts the people on fixed income.
You said recently that you thought an infrastructure package of about $600 billion to $800 billion might be something in that range. How firm are you on that upper limit? Would you go above $800 billion?
Well, I've asked Senator Capito to be our leader on that, and she's produced a bill of around $600 billion that she thinks makes sense. As you know, 5 of our members met with the president on that subject. They are today meeting with the Secretary of Transportation and the Secretary of Commerce, and I'm going to defer to her. She's in the lead on this, and I'm comfortable with where she's taken us so far.
Leader McConnell. Are we open to bipartisan negotiations on the 1-6 Commission? Will you all propose what you'd like to see, the changes with the House and with the Senate Democrats?
Yeah, I think I pretty accurately described where we are. We're talking about this. You know, what is the composition of it? Is it truly balanced? And also trying not to ignore what's already happening. The Justice Department is aggressively pursuing the people who encroached on the Capitol. Senator Blunt, Senator Portman, through the Rules Committee and Homeland Security, are in the middle of a study. In the meantime, in addition to the January 6th commission, the Speaker is apparently sending to us, she's sending to us a supplemental as well, and we're not sure what to spend the money on yet. So I think we are pushing the pause button here, taking a look. If both of these come over, both the January 6th Commission and the supplemental, we'll take a look at them. But they're going to have to make sense in the context of where we are with the criminal investigation that's very much underway and the studies that Senator Blunt and Senator Portman are involved in.
Mr. Leader, you had previously suggested you were open to, you wanted an investigation to have a broader scope to look into what happened last summer. Are you open to a scope that's looking specifically at the January 6th attack?
Well, Manu, let me try again. We are discussing this whole matter in our conference. We just had a good discussion of it at lunch, and we're evaluating what is appropriate given where we are. And I don't have an answer beyond that at the moment. Yeah.
You have made your support and Senate Republican support for Israel expressly clear on the Senate floor this week. You specifically named a 5-year-old Israeli boy that tragically lost his life, but you didn't name the number of Palestinian children that have died. Is there equal concern for the Palestinian children losing their life in this conflict as well?
Well, we're concerned about all children, but the difference, let me try one more time. The difference is the Israelis actually call in advance if they're going to make a strike and suggest to their adversaries that they get out of the building in order to try to avoid killing anyone. Hamas, which is a terrorist group, lobs shells into populous areas with the purpose of killing innocent civilians. The total lack of moral equivalency. There are a significant number of Democrats now who want to throw Israel under the bus and act like there's some equivalency here. There isn't. Completely without moral equivalency. A terrorist group on the one hand that exploits, by the way, the Palestinians themselves by frequently putting them in harm's way, and the Israelis who are going out of their way to make precision responses to defend their country and their citizens.
Mr. Leader, how confident are you that there will be a deal on police reform by next week or the deadline set by President Biden?
Well, you need to check with Senator Scott. He is in charge of our negotiation, and he could give you, I think, the best answer to how close we are.
Have you been meeting,
Thank you.
Meeting with negotiators?